Doncs estem aquí per fer la segona edició dels seminaris interdisciplinars que estem organitzant els grups de l'IN3. Avui ens toca a 3 grups, 2 de l'IN3 i un de la UOC, diguem-ne. Faré la presentació en anglès perquè tenim alguns convidats que ens interessa que ho entenguin, més que res perquè ho hauran de fer ells, el projecte l'hauran d'acabar implementant ells, o sigui que continuaré en anglès. So this morning we are presenting a project that we named Streetscape. This is a project that we submitted to the Recercaixa call in 2017. We hopefully will have some sort of answer by the beginning of 2018. So this is not an ongoing project in the sense that we're already deploying it. It's rather a collaboration that we started and that we hope that we can pursue in the near future. So from IN3 we have TURBA. Of course you all know who they are, Ramon and his group, and their activities, their turbulent activities, tumultuosas. Maybe later he wants to explain a little bit about what they do and what they don't. Then it's our group Cosine, Complex Systems at IN3. You also know us, Albert here, Maria just joined us. Also we have Daniel who is joining in the next days, in the following weeks. And then the group SUnAI from Scene Understanding, so they are using artificial intelligence, deep learning for scene understanding. Also if David, who is here, if he wants to say a few words later, he'll be very welcome. So as I said, this project Streetscape, one can wonder how can you mix, in what way can there be a collaboration between people who are more in the urban sociology, social science, political science group like TURBA, how does it mix with people who is coming from artificial intelligence, and what the hell are the people from complex systems doing in the middle. So let's hope that this presentation kind of clarifies why this is possible and why we think this is an exciting project. Okay, so kind of the global context. The problem, let's call it the problem of the city, or the problems of cities. We have one of the greatest challenges ahead for the world, actually, not only for us, but the world, has to do with the increasing urbanization process. That means that we have migration, heavy migration towards urban centers, to large cities. So despite the fact that cities apparently only occupy 2% of the surface of the earth, well, we see the numbers here. They produce 70% of the GDP around the world, 60% of energy consumption, plus other issues that definitely make it a great challenge. The concentration of people in a kind of a very small area, it brings about exciting dynamics, also lots of problems, and hopefully solution. These are some of the problems that you can easily think about when you think about cities. Of course, as I'm the one speaking, from Complex Systems we devote a lot of efforts. Albert, who just left the room, probably could talk a lot about this. We've been working on things like traffic dynamics, congestion, problems that arise in urban infrastructure. But then, of course, for people like Ramon, there's another set of problems that they are interested in. I don't know. Sometimes I talk to Ug. He talks about water supply. There are many issues. Or if we talk to Javi Vilajosana from the wine group, I'm not sure if anyone from wine is here, no, but they have other problems, sensorizing, the smart city problem, sensorizing, etc. So we know that there are lots of challenges and research opportunities ahead in this area. Here I place this Habitat 3 from the UN initiative. Let's talk a little bit more about this. I hate putting long text in presentations. I don't like it. But on this occasion, I made an exception. So I copy-pasted part of what is called the Barcelona Declaration. The Habitat 3 from the UN got together in Barcelona in 2016. That's just 1 year ago. And this is part of the text that you can read online. There's a PDF that talks about why this discussion on urban space, that was the topic of the meeting, is interesting. So, okay, what we see here, as I said, let's go through this quickly. Okay, we talk about different urban typologies, plazas, boulevards, neighborhood gardens, blah, blah. Why are they important? Why is it important to have these streets and different elements of the city, let's say, in shape, in a healthy condition? Well, lower crime rates and violence, space available for formal and informal, social, cultural, and economic activities, improve equity, promote inclusion, combat discrimination. It has to do with productivity. Then it's also important for sustainability of the cities, so reducing pollution, blah, blah, blah. We see that the street pattern, it's an interesting, it's an important topic per se. It's important to have, as I said, a healthy street pattern. The urban space needs to be taken care of. Actually, this is just kind of a repetition of the previous. I wanted to highlight in the section mobility, this Barcelona Declaration has these 3 points. And to me, it was important to highlight them. Check that 2 of them, the first 2, have to do with, let's say, pedestrian life. So change the paradigm towards a post-car city. It's not only about pedestrians, it also has to do with public transportation, but it has to do with pedestrians, definitely, and fostering walkability and bicycle use in a more human public space. Only the third one has to do with vehicles, let's say. So the first 2 have to do with that. Now, if we take a look at cities and streets in I think we can all recognize places like this in our own towns. Definitely, it appears that we are not close to that. So when we think about who has the right to use the public space, here in this picture, it's clear it's not pedestrians. This is not safe for the child, it's not comfortable for the father who is dragging this thing, but cars have 2 lanes, one for parking and one for circulating. I don't know what the word is exactly in English. We think about, let's say more maybe commercial areas, important streets in our cities. We have 2, 3 lanes for cars, and everyone is here, you know, trying to survive in their own space. Think about this old man trying to walk around. You know, we put these things on. I don't know either the word in English for this, these pylons. They are made for cars not to park on our sidewalks. So we are protecting ourselves physically from this invasive behavior from cars, but also they become dangerous for ourselves. So we are trying to protect ourselves from cars, but then this old man here, you know, he may stumble, he may fall on one of these. Just a couple or 3 days ago, last Friday, we were talking to the head of the Guardia Urbana de Barcelona, and he was actually saying how dangerous this is, how many accidents there are having to do with people just stumbling on this and then, you know, just hitting on them. So what about this? You know, these objectives, and then we see this kind of situation. Okay, it's not like I'm discovering anything. So it's obvious that cities are already thinking about this. They are already aware that this is a problem, and they are proposing solutions. I focused here on in Barcelona because obviously it's our area of interest. It's where we live, or most of you live. I don't, but so we have attempts to provide some solution. We have here the superillas, these super blocks, trying to make an area that used to be for vehicles, making it available for pedestrians, fully available for pedestrians. Probably around the world there are other solutions, there are other initiatives similar to this one or different. We know that this one has been very problematic because of, well, some people are not, they don't agree that this is actually an advance for the neighborhood. They think that the neighborhood becomes sort of deserted. But then we have, again, let me repeat this, this obvious fact that, people is just crowded here, and then you have these guys, they enjoy like 70% of the urban space. And why would this be? They are not more, there's no more people in here than in here. But still they have some sort of privilege. We don't even think about that privilege because we have grown up like this. I grew up in a city already like this, so I'm so used to it. I'm used to be aware of whether a car is coming or not when I'm crossing the street because I was born in this situation. But if you think about it, it's kind of aberrant. Now, of course, our obsession when, you know that our attitude towards problems, at least from complex systems, is always quantification. We are obsessed with this. I know it's not the solution to everything, but that's how we see problems. So to me, it became clear that there's something that we are missing. And this idea became clear quite long ago, long before we started this project with Ramon and with David. Actually, this idea about quantification, about trying to quantify how bad this situation is. So from the pictures we see intuitively, this is wrong, but how wrong is it? So the idea about quantification came to me one day when I was visiting, I don't know, who knows how I came about this web page, SUnAI. It's a funny name. It's like saying, do you want to become Copenhagen? SUnAI is apparently it's an architect's, it's an urban designer's office in Copenhagen, and they provide services to the city. They design things, they design bike lanes, how to change streets. And one of the architects working there, he has this kind of particular hobby. When he travels around the world, he takes pictures of places. This is Paris, this is, again, this is Moscow. He has other examples in the web page. You can go up and check it. And I liked it very much. He calls it the arrogance of space. He had the same idea. He thought this is aberrant in a way. It's an arrogant attitude. And then he said, of course, when we look at this picture, maybe we don't visualize how bad the situation is. Then he just put some colors in here. He did it by himself. He put some blue in the pedestrian area, some yellow in the buildings, and then some red in the asphalt, the area that is forbidden to us. And now it becomes very apparent, it becomes very visible how unfair the social space, the urban free space, public space is actually shared. And it's an imbalanced form of sharing. It's an imbalanced sharing. Here in Moscow, it becomes even more clear. And then he mentions, this is a block, so he just mentions, in a livable city, you should be able to climb to a high place, look down at any given moment and see humans in the urban theater, but that's not the case. And then at that time, when I stumbled on this web page, I was so excited. I thought at the time that this guy had done this in some sort of automated way, that he had a tool to do this. That's what I thought at the time. So I started searching inside the web, this SUnAI thing, whether they had this piece of code, maybe an algorithm, maybe, I don't know, a exe file, that I could download and start running it in pictures of the city. And then I realized that that's not the case. He actually did it manually. He did it as a hobby. He did the same thing here in Barcelona, you see, the arrogance of space. He takes one intersection in the Eixample, and then he does the same. Look at this, you see, now you become aware of the amount of space that you don't have as a pedestrian and that cars do have. So then I thought, I told you, I said, well, there's no tool. I thought there was a tool. I thought this had been done with some sort of tool. It's not. So I thought, okay, let us do it. So there was a target in my mind. I said, I want to scale up this arrogance of space project. I want to take the idea from this architect and do it big. Try to run it on a large scale. So how would you do that? Well, You need to have big data. You have to be ready to work with big data. Let's say that you take satellite imagery from whatever source, Google Maps, the European Space Agency, OpenStreetMap. Here in Catalonia, we have the Institut Cartogràfic. I will talk about it later. They have excellent imagery, for instance. Let's take that imagery, which is publicly available, and try to build a tool that does this automatically. That's the whole purpose, and the initial idea, the seed idea. So the first question is, okay, am I crazy? Is this actually possible? Maybe it's not. Maybe we are not in that state of the art. We are not at that stage. So the first thing that I did is try to look for projects that do something, I don't know, similar. Maybe with another idea, maybe with another view, but let's see if that's possible. Then I stumbled on this project Sunroof, which is actually, it started as a private project by some students or researchers, I don't know. Then Google saw it and they jumped in, so they are funding them to do it. Project Sunroof, the idea is very simple. They take Google satellite imagery, and by knowing the orientation and the north, south, etc., they try to give you a tool so you know whether it's worth installing solar energy devices on your rooftop. Okay, so that's the Sunroof project. So you have some colors. Okay, in this dark color, you should not install anything because you don't have sunlight most of the day. Then if you have, I don't know, this kind of color, you should. So definitely there are some tools out there that are along this line, using big data to provide some sort of civic service, public, that tell you some useful information about your city. We have another example here. This is from the MIT. They call it Treepedia. They take Google Street View, they analyze this image with some sort of artificial intelligence technique, and what they do is they determine what is a tree in this picture. How many trees do we see in our city? So by covering, let's say, tile by tile, picture by picture, they try to build a map that tells you how pleasant, how green is the area where you live in. And then thanks to this, they provide some statistics, let's say about Boston, New York, or any other cities. Here we have a usage of artificial intelligence that goes along the line of what we're thinking about. So then I convinced myself that it was technically possible to do this. And then I went to see this man here, because I am not an expert in artificial intelligence or deep learning or any other technique that has to do with this. I haven't worked with this, but we have at work, we have a whole group that does that. So why not? Why not try to reach them out, reach them and collaborate in some way? Then, so we talked with David, we talked with Agatha, we had several meetings with Albert, and so the four of us, and we started talking about whether is it possible to do this or not. And then we came up with some existing libraries. Here you can visit this page, Scene Segmentation. It's a project from the CSAIL lab in MIT, and they do exactly what they say, scene segmentation. But actually, this is a library, it's a pre-trained library. So what you have there, it's, I don't know, thousands of pictures that they have trained into this deep learning framework, so as to provide something similar, I guess, to this. So this kind of street view thing where the project can distinguish buildings from trees, from people, from cars, from other things. And they are just assigning these labels around. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem with this one is that it's not meant to be for satellite or zenithal photography. It's not meant to do this. So if you actually, the good thing about this is that you can go online and actually upload a photo of yours, and it will give you some output. So we did it. We just copy-pasted, we kind of cut a piece of Barcelona. This is some intersection, some random intersection in Barcelona, and we feed this server of this web page with that, and the output is very deceiving, as you see. Actually, well, you know, it says, okay, it does get some truth. There's some truth in here. Road, this gray area. Well, there's something about this here, and maybe here, and then there's some greenery, tree here, this area here. Well, it does grasp something, some truth in the picture, but definitely the precision of this is very limited. No sidewalk, and definitely, you know, well, buildings here. Well, this is not a building, but so there's lots of noise in here. It's normal. The library from MIT was not meant to analyze this sort of image. So it was clear for us that we need to do it ourselves. We will have to build it ourselves. Okay, so this is sort of the pipeline for the project. If we want to do it by ourselves, how is it going to be done? Well, you need to build this deep learning framework, convolutional neural networks. David and Agatha are the experts on this. Christina will hopefully, she's joining the group in 1 month, and she will be the one developing this in close collaboration with all of us, David and Agatha and all of us. So the idea is that you, of course, need some sort of ground truth. So because it will not learn out of nothing. I don't know about deep learning, I'm not an expert in this, but I do know that artificial intelligence works in this way. You need to provide it with a large set of ground truth trained, so let's say handmade data, where you're telling it what is each thing for real. It learns this pattern, and then at some point, hopefully, you will feed it with a new one, and it will tell you the right answer. So this is the idea. We have to build a very large ground truth set, and then we need to collect images from, as I said before, anywhere, European Space Agency, Google, whatever, and then joining these two things, have this convolutional neural network scheme that will identify for us the areas in the urban space. This should be the result, what we call pixel-to-pixel urban geometry, segmentation, and labeling. We will have in that picture the most precise possible segmentation. It will tell us for each pixel in the picture of that satellite image, this pixel is sidewalk, this pixel is asphalt, this pixel is a building, this pixel. Well, we'll start out with, let's say, 3 basic categories: sidewalk, asphalt, building. We further, you know, down the path, we may want to refine these into trees, into, I don't know, other elements that you can find in the urban space. But so far, let's focus on these 3. So this is our desired result. Now, we have many problems here. First of all, you know, I cannot devote the time to manually annotate thousands of images to provide the machinery with the ground truth. We don't have the time or the people for that. So how are we going to do it? So anyway, this is another view, another way of representing this pipeline now with examples, okay? Let's see how we're going to do it. So we will start we will start exploiting the data that comes from the Institut Cartogràfic i Geològic de Catalunya. Daniel will be working in close collaboration with them. We actually have an agreement with them such that Daniel can work some days here, some days at the Institute with the guys who are actually building these maps. One of the things that, if you go to the webpage of the Institute, it's really awesome. They have lots of free open material for everyone to use and to exploit. It's not only about imagery, like this one, it's about also the topographic base. Diga. Okay, sorry. So they have what they call this topographic base. In this topographic base, you have a precise representation of the elements of the city in this kind of shape files. So this is something that is tractable from an algorithmic point of view. You have points and lines and polygons in these files. And you see this is the Rambla Nova de Tarragona. This is where Albert and I come from. So I wanted to put a piece of it here also. You see it's the same image, exactly the same one. In the topographic part, you have a precise representation of the sidewalk. You see it here, this line. And then also this here, this is the central sidewalk of the Rambla, this part. And then this kind of aisle here, this roundabout. And then the buildings are also marked. So at that time we said, Eureka, we have it. This is the ground truth. I take this data from the institute, which is free, and they are actually very happy for that we use it, that we exploit it. And we already know where buildings, sidewalks, and asphalt are. Now I just need to take this, download it, feed the neural, the convolutional neural network with it, and that's it. And then I just go for Paris, London, New York, whatever, you know, make it big. But it's not true, because it turns out that this representation here, it doesn't have labels in the way that we want, saying this is a building, this is a sidewalk. The representation is there, but you need to build an algorithmic solution such that you actually distinguish which is which. And this has to do with some geometrical operations. It's not straightforward. We have, the good part of this is that we have evidence already that it is possible to do it. This is a kind of a first, so besides Daniel here, we have also been in touch with SICTE. SICTE is kind of a spin-off from the Universitat de Girona. They are experts in GIS processing. We were in talks with them to see if this problem was solvable or not from the data of the institute. We don't even see here. Here it says this SICTE thing. And they built like a version 0 of what this software would look like. And you see, it was quite successful. So out of the shape files from the institute that are publicly available, they were capable of building a small script, an algorithm, that is telling you, you know, these red lines are the sidewalks, and this is the buildings, and so on and so forth. So that means that at this point you could already be doing something so elementary like calculating what area of sidewalk do you have, which is not obvious. What is the area of the asphalt? What is the area of the sidewalk? What is the proportion between them? As I said before, quantification. We want to bring to the light this arrogance of space, quantifying it. Let's say in my city, I'm just making it up, quantifying this means 25% of the space of the area is for pedestrians, 75% is for cars. I want to make that number available. So we are we know that this is technically possible from this data and exploiting all of this. We are very happy to have, as I said, the Institut Cartogràfic. They are, you know, open doors, and they are allowing us, as I said before, to have Daniel there. He will be able to talk. They are very open to this collaboration, and we are very happy about that. Okay, so let us suppose that we already have, let's say, all this ground truth from the GIS data from the Institute. We have this ground truth, let's say, for all of Catalonia, which is the area that the Institute covers. But it's quite large. That means that for cities like Barcelona, of course, but then quite large cities like Sabadell or Terrassa or Tarragona, Manresa, etc., you have the ground truth. You know exactly where the sidewalks are, where the buildings are, where the asphalt is. Now you can say, okay, maybe I should try Madrid, or I should try Paris, because I have such a large set of ground truth. I hope that the deep learning framework will be very well trained. That's the expectation. And then, this is the part that I don't know of, but anyway, this is how it works. You provide these deep convolutional neural networks with an input, and then layer by layer it will start processing this in different ways to different depths, and finally you should have something that is labeled and segmented. So you have this assignation of pixels from area to area. So this is an idealized, of course, this is, I did it by hand, but this is what it should be. Now it should become automatic. I should be able to provide this input to the computer, and it should be able to give me this output. And now this should be done really automatically, not out of any ground truth from GIS or anything, but actually truly a software that has learned to do this. And then this is for me, so far, what I have explained, I think that you can notice by my voice and the way I talk that I am excited about it, but not that much. It's not my area. I mean, I will not be able to help much these guys in doing this. I mean, I don't know, maybe I can provide some advice, but probably I will not be of much help to David or to Christina or to Danielle. To me, the exciting part for us starts after this. You've gone through this, and at some point, this is what you get. This is the desired output, and you do this large scale for every tile in a city for many cities. So this is, you need to have a very reasonable, a very efficient way of storing this information. You need to have a large database, etc. To me, the exciting part starts here. That's the part in which I can claim to be some expert, if any. So how can we exploit from complex systems, how can we exploit this in building what we can call sidewalk networks, and then starting characterizing them for different cities, for different continents, for different sizes of cities. We have all the scales that you can imagine, from a very small town to a very large city. So can we find some scaling laws in here? So the project for us, for Albert and I, let's say, or for Albert, Maria and I, the project starts, we have some sort of a delayed gratification in this, because we have to wait until we have this data going on to start really doing things. And then we have here, well, it's not, it was the best way I found to express this. I did this kind of research impact and the social impact. And some of these items have research impact, but then some others have some social impact. This I put here a social impact because this database will be completely public. That means that I can have my own wet dreams of what I can do with this data, but they may be very far away from what you think you can do with this data. And I will be, you know, very happy if this data is publicly available and some people exploit it in different ways that I had not thought about. Of course, do not exploit it in the way I thought about, because then you will be stepping on me, but try to exploit it in any other way. So that's what I call a social impact. It will be open for researchers or just people who want to take a look at it. How does my neighborhood look? And then we have here some other, what I call other social impacts. Here I talk about pedestrian risk. This is a project that we have obtained, that is funded from the Dirección General de Tráfico. So Albert and I wrote this proposal, and actually this is where we're getting the money to hire Danielle and Christina. That has to do with pedestrian risk, in which you need all of this. And then here, this functional diversity is the project that we, where the TURBA group, and Carla in particular, Carla Berrens, joined in. It's thinking about, and Ramon will explain this, but thinking about how can we exploit this towards some challenge or need that people in the city have. And in this case, we thought of this functional diversity framework. Carla is very related, I mean, she's closely related to people with some sort of visual impairment. And this is the direction that we are taking for this proposal in red that we still don't know about. So as I said, Scaleup, that was the idea from the origin, from the arrogance of space, from the Copenhagenites. For Catalonia, this is straightforward in a certain way, because as I said, we have all the data from the Institute. So that means that we know that we have ground truth data for every town or almost any town in Catalonia. But then we would like to go further. Here I put some European cities. but also, I don't know, elsewhere, where we would like to apply this. And now, Ramon.
Oh, thank you, Javier. First of all, I apologize, just a little apology. I'm not Carla, as you could see. Carla is the person in the group who has been worked very close with Javier and all his team in this project. But for research and teaching commitments, it was very difficult in this period of the time that she's here. So I'm doing Carla. Second thing, I mean, that's a great project. I mean, when Javier started at COM the first time to explain this project, it was really exciting because it has a lot of potential. And as you could see, I mean, you don't need a social scientist here, if you could say, because I mean, the interdisciplinarity between the group SUnAI and the complex system it's already in the, within ICT and certain quantitative approaches is already interdisciplinary. But what I will do now is to explain not only how you put a social scientist in this fantastic project, but as a social scientist, I don't like lines. Going to A to B is too quick. I need to do a surrounding. And what I will try to explain is how a research group like myself and the collective that we are here, Isa, Carlos, and so on, that depart from a very different tradition, engage with this project and tries to build, on the first instance, a simple interdisciplinarity between social science and ICT that is taking, that is what basically has explained Javier, that this is you have this tool, and then we have to think, social scientists, what are the applications. But for Javier and I, and for the two research groups, and I guess as well for the BIT group, although in this side he has been less involved because you have been more in the technical, saying how we can go to a deeper level of interdisciplinarity. And this is what I will try to explain in 5-10 minutes at most, and otherwise you cut me and say, shut up. Okay, Javier has talked about the arrogance of space, thing that we completely agree. And this has been his point of departure. We come from a very different point, a very similar point, but from a very different angle. We think that space is arrogant, but our research questions is not about how arrogant is the space, but how arrogant is the social production of a space. Let me show you. I mean, cities, at the end of the day, is built environment. It's constructed by humans. And we have the medieval city, like here, like Visby in Sweden. And this is a typical medieval city. I mean, in the city center, you have the church, the town hall, the market square, where farmers comes on a regular basis to sell their products. You have the walls, because you have to defend militarily. And this is an example of modern city of 19th century. This is the Plaza da, you know. Obviously, these different models of city comes from different social relations behind that produce different forms of the city. What is interesting is you could see that here is very visual. I mean, you know the relations of power and how the city is organized and what is behind the church, the market, and the authority that usually is non-democratic because this is a medieval city. Here, you could see the center is a spot of here, and it has a very different thing. That is as most of like the Haussmann Paris, Imperial London, or Washington DC construction in late 18th century, early 19th century. Here the logic is the streets, the reticular, the movement. You could see the Meridiana that goes from the harbor to France, to Paris. You have Diagonal that goes from the sea to Madrid. This is the sort of spaces, the Champla, that you have put as an example. And what is beneath this arrogance is the construction of a modern city to move things that we don't see in the map, that are commodities, that is labor, and so on. And it's built through things that we cannot see here. Here in Catalonia, here in Barcelona, it was a slavery trade and the cotton from the former colonies. In London or in Paris, with their, the money and the accumulation made through the colonies. So, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we have been interested not so much in what you can see, but in what you cannot see. That can be summarized in this sentence of Professor Kaika, Maria Kaika, that is professor right now in Amsterdam in architecture, that, let me read it. We were to capture some of the metabolized flows that weave together the urban fabric, I mean, what is visible, and excavate, in other words, what is not visible, the networks that brought them there, we would pass with continuity from the local to the global, from the human to the non-human. These flows would narrate many interrelated tables of the city, of its people and the powerful socio-ecological processes that produce the urban, complete with its space of privilege and exclusion, of participation and marginality, of rats and bankers, of diseases and pork belly speculation, of chemical, physical and biological transformation, of global warming and acid rain, of capital flows and the strategies of city builders, including the pavements, of plans implemented by engineers, scientists and economists. They would make up the story of city of flows. Then, from 1970s, a big strand of the social sciences looking at in urban studies has looked at what is beneath. In contrast with what was traditionally from the Chicago School of the 20s and the New Regional Science in the 60s that were starting from visualization and then going beneath. Then we have seen then a very powerful tool to map and visualize. And as a group, we were thinking that we're always looking behind, but it's very necessary to see what is in front. And then we started to think like William Bunge and other people in Detroit did in the 70s when all these kind of maps were disappearing from urban studies. This is a map of Detroit's black neighborhoods where you can have colored the region of the color of where people have seen rats, and the dots is where a rat has bitten a kid. This was done with a participatory project with the neighborhoods in the siting, going to the records of the hospitals and GP practices to map that out. I mean, this is a thing that help a lot then to change the policy of sanitation, of health, and as well of prevention that we need to visualize. And urban studies right now, or the branches of urban studies that we are not working on it, they forgot about that. And that's very important because they also, for instance, this, in this project that now is recovered, but in the 70s past in the academia with no much success, also they counted with the people how many people of different ethnic origin were living, and they it gives new data in order to change the school system selection of a school, of higher schools, and then make a less racialized Detroit school system. And in this point, another project, this is led by Carlos right there, has done precisely the same of looking at how visual the map of visual discapacity, working with people, collective in Zaragoza, and trying to map out with the street maps and all open source. And this is very similar what Javier is trying to do. What's the problem? You need to go city by city. You have to have strong collectives. You have to have a lot of willingness of a lot of actors that they work for free. But then you have a big problem. That's not always possible. That's not possible because maybe you don't have a community of this GIS mappers. You don't have a possibility of strong communities. Imagine, for instance, as well in big mega regions or mega cities, as well in the global south. It's very difficult. And this is when it comes our engagement with Javier as well in this line. That is, we thought, okay, we need to come back to move beyond the case study, that we can scale up. And this in the terms of visibility of problems like the ones that Javier has said, and then later on he will talk about more. We need, from research group that is always working on qualitative behind-the-scenes processes, to relate it with visual ones, getting, if you want, a kind of a stereoscopic research. I know that for people who work in design and media design, stereoscopic means one thing. I know that for social sciences, if you are in the tradition of the School of Frankfurt or the French Marxism of the 50s, stereoscopic means different things. What I'm saying here by stereoscopic is that stereoscopic is kind of a two-dimensional image that allows you to see the depth. And I think that this is the kind of what we are trying to do with this project, that it is. We have this two-dimensional, very powerful tool that allows us to see beneath the two dimensions what is creating the third. It means that we have great research questions, great policy solutions through the two dimensions, but also, if we mix with the other, we can have a very powerful new interdisciplinary research on walkability. I mean, the tool, for instance, allows us to see where you can walk or not, where it happens, because the suggestion is that there will be many areas that walkability is not possible because, like in Detroit, in that area of the map happens. I mean, the 8 Mile Avenue and all the big commuting streets pass basically through the poor neighborhoods where it's more difficult to walk, and then how do you relate with other things? It allows you to rethink the space, and therefore to bring planning tools for different collective, like people with diverse functionality and so on. And this is basically what we are trying. What I'm saying is that, as Javier has said very briefly before, he has talked about that. The tool allows that, but what we are trying to do is moving beyond that and going one step further and start a dialogue of how, from a very different ontological and epistemological positions, we can build new knowledge and new ways of collaborating. We are at the beginning. We have other projects on the pipeline with Ivan, for instance, that Albert maybe can say something else, because this is a research that you and Ivan has been working for a while right now. But this is my contribution to the presentation, since Carla is not here. Rather than explain you exactly the benefit, it has been trying to explain how the process it works, passing from one way of interdisciplinarity to a bigger stage, and how we can build a relation between social science, ICT, and complex systems. So, Javier, again, back to you.
Thanks, Ramon. So if you thought that you were free of me, you were wrong. Okay, so finally, these final slides, they are, so Ramon and I, we thought that the presentation would not be complete just by explaining what the group of David will do, or my group, or Ramon group will be doing in the project, what are the technical challenges, etc. But actually, as I said before, our hope is that once we have this analysis, people will use them. People at the Institute or elsewhere. Of course, we would love to see people in the Institute working with it, trying to see value in it. So we try to imagine scenarios that could possibly engage with some, not all of you, but some people that are here in the Institute. So for instance, we thought of the city in Barcelona. We know how involved the group of Arnau Monterde, not here either, but has been how involved they are in this platform for citizen participation in the Barcelona Town Hall, in the Barcelona administration. We think it's a great project. There are actually, we have, Albert and I have been talking to them for other issues, analyzing interactions within the platform, you know, that it's kind of a place where you can actually write down your own, I don't know the word in English, suggestions for city improvement. There are different open topics, etc. We have talked to them about these different things. I have also been talking to other people in Barcelona Decidim who are not at the walk, but elsewhere, like Javier Barandarian. Here are just, I just captured this from the website yesterday. These are the open topics right now in Barcelona Decidim, in this platform. And we see that not all of them, but some of them, and not, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of them, have to do with the urban design, have to do with how the city has to change. So it has to do with this planning, Pla d'Usos de Ciutat Vella. It has to do with how how should the commercial areas be spread in Ciutat Bella, since it's probably overexploited, and that is giving difficulties to the people who live there. And all this tourism and the excessive density of these services are choking the area. So, el Pla d'Usos de Ciutat Bella, and I'm not going to explain each of them, but what I'm trying to say is that many of these projects have to do with how urban space is used and how urban space is shared. And therefore, we think that what we are talking about here can give at least a powerful visualization tool for us to think, just like Ramon was mentioning, let's say, inequalities. Let's say I try to analyze the walkability with the sidewalk networks. I analyze the walkability of some, I don't know, Sarrià-Sant Gervasi, and then I do the same for a depressed area in Barcelona, and I realize that the walkability is significantly more difficult, maybe because you have this kind of large roads, large hubs, traffic hubs traversing them, and it makes it difficult for them to build a pedestrian life, a walkable life in that neighborhood. So that maybe it is a way of quantifying differences and deprivation in certain neighborhoods, etc. So maybe we thought that in the framework of Barcelona Decidim, it may work if only as a visualization tool, and also maybe as something that people can act upon. Maybe they can use in some other way. In the general context of what is called urban resilience, yeah, this is sort of the City Resilience Index, kind of graphical representation of what a city should have, what ingredients a city should have to be resilient. This comes from this Rockefeller Foundation. They have this program called 100 Resilient Cities. So they are funding 100 cities to become more resilient. One of them is Barcelona, by the way. If you go to the webpage of the program, they are also willing to fund initiatives, just saying. And we see some of these ingredients are equitable, vibrant, safe, greener, inclusive. Some of these topics can be linked to this segmentation of the city that we are proposing. Having walkable cities makes them more equitable, more vibrant, maybe more commercially attractive, etc., etc. So maybe more resilient in this sense, in this kind of broad sense. Finally, I wanted just also kind of an idea that we throw to the group, to Irra and his group. It's this kind of application in natural disasters. So let's say that at some point I have, because we have this working machinery that has this pixel-to-pixel segmentation, let's say I can profile a whole city, like, let's say, San Francisco. So I have all the city profiled with this tool, so I know where the sidewalks are, and the asphalt, and the buildings, and other urban elements. And then something happens in that city. San Francisco, why not? It's likely that they have an earthquake one day or another. So this is an example of a before and after. This is Japan in 2011. We all remember that earthquake and the catastrophic consequences. Same street in two different time stamps.